Hi everyone, McBeard here, and welcome back to the surprise Merchants of Ofir speed reaction video, because it's not a preview, it's here. 70 plus cards arrived today, December 9th. Depending on what order you watch my videos in, it's all relevant right now. And we're going to be covering Scoia'Tael, Skellige, Syndicate, and the neutral editions from this new expansion. We've already talked about the new mechanics in the expansion in my previous video, and I've already also covered monsters, Nilfgaard, and Northern Realms. So let's cover off the rest of this stuff. So Scoia'Tael, probably, I'm hesitant to say it, but I think they got the best set again in this expansion. Iron Judgment was very kind to them, and I think that this is just as good. Let's start off with, they got a new Harmony card that's a beast, so much like they got a Dwarf Harmony card in the Minor, and they also got an Elf Harmony card with the Half-Elf Hunter. Now we have a Harmony Beast. So this is probably pretty good. And I also want to talk about Nature's Rebuke, which is a cool nature card that is much like the Hot Oil or the Boiling Oil. It's like an Alzur's Thunder Plus, although more likely to find a way to get value, because the value is a hard number of 2. And if you have a Weeping Willow or whatever, you just get an extra boost. You can't control the boost, it just happens. But you're happy to take that because 5 at removal with a body that's playable in the first place. So it's better than Boiling Oil. It's probably the best, one of the best pieces of removal we'll see. But you gotta have Treants. You know, Fov can pull it as well, so you can tutor it out, much like John Natalis can pull out the oil. I want to talk about those 2 cards first because they're kind of the odd ones out. And then you have this new strong Elven Swarm package. This is really good. It's very outside of the lore in that it seems to have no support, unless there was a collection of End-Shade elves just hanging out in Ofir that came over the sea. But it's just about Elven Swarm, just lots of strong Elven support. Riot Saboteur, hand buff for elf, very interesting. Vernasiel's Commando is a really strong engine, pretty easy to meet the condition if you're playing Vernasiel or not, because you're probably playing Elf Swarm in the first place. But there are some beasts. You got the Harmony Hawk, and you do have this other card, Merlega. So Merlega and Etriel are very strong combo cards. They slot in very comfortably at 7. Merlega's damaging units by 3 or 9 if you already control Etriel, but if you play Merlega first, Etriel is damaging an enemy unit by 3 or a single unit by 7. Incredibly strong combo cards. I have nothing bad to say about these cards. They are fantastic. But would you believe that there's still better cards? I think Vernasiel is quite something. Now, Vernasiel cares more about Elven Deadeyes than anything else, but is still an elf, and elf decks would want to run this because Elven Deadeyes might be the truth. Trap Scoia'Tael might actually be the truth. And playing Deadeyes, because you have the scenario that spawns lots of Deadeyes, and lots of ways to spawn Deadeyes from previous cards in the set. So you have a lot of potential here. Vernasiel specifically is only Deadeyes, so I actually think these cards might be more impactful just because of the all-the-time value that you'll be able to just throw down, as well as the removal opportunity. Playing this first seems very reasonable, and then having this in hand to threaten removal of anything at all seems really, really good. So if I had to rank these cards right now, I'd probably say that the Trained Hawk, the Harmony Hawk also has damage and like utility as well. Let's see. I mean, it's kind of tough. Maybe the Riot Saboteur is the weakest one because boosting an elf in hand, it matters for the War Dancer, and that makes the War Dancer quite good. And that is probably underrated, but I think it's probably the weakest card in the set here, even if it is good. And I think that I'd say the Trained Hawk and Nature's Rebuke, even though these are really good cards. Also, Vernasiel's Commando, I think it's probably really easy to hit this. There's a lot of beasts. Some beasts were added. Like, there's lots of cards that Scoia'Tael likes to play that aren't elves. So maybe Vernasiel's Commando, maybe like around the Hawk. And then I'd probably say Vernasiel herself. And then probably Merlega and Etriel, because it's just... it works in what Scoia'Tael deck doesn't consider running this package right now. I think these cards are great. I think the Scoia'Tael package was pretty tight. It's really easy to play the scenario, plus the scenario is 2 provisions cheaper than any of the other ones. It all works with like Isengrim and the other elf cards and cards that care about elves and Eilerin. And Vernociel also spawning extra elves makes it really easy to get Eilerin as well as the stratagem. So I'd say it as a cohesive core, Scoia'Tael got a great set of cards, even if their cards are maybe none of them really stand out on their own, because they're all good with another card in the set. This cares about let's try to get this right. This cares about other races. This cares about what's in your hand. This cares about what's on your board. This cares about killing stuff and what's on your board. This cares about something else on the board, something else on the board, right? So none of them work in a vacuum singleton-wise great. But as a unit, it's really cool. I think that maybe they didn't get the best setup, but I think that they got a really cool synergistic core. Skellige coming in with the Crow Druid core. This is some cool stuff, some really, really interesting stuff, some cool graveyard play, some cool alchemy play. Let's talk about the big card. I think this card is probably one of the coolest cards, and with something like Operator specifically, or anything else that can copy a card, this card is going to be pretty good, especially if you want to purify Doomed, if you have to like, if it makes a Doomed copy. I'm kind of brain farting a little bit because a lot of stuff is new and a lot of stuff changed. But the point is, these cards are like the old Foglet. It will come out of the deck and it will come out of the graveyard later. Also, the Crow Mother also comes out of the graveyard whenever you play an alchemy card. She also spawns 2 crows on the row. Crows are something you're going to see a lot of probably in Skellige. 2 strength beasts that are doomed, so they don't they're not immediately really, really good for like the Corrupted Flaminica. But what is good about the Crow Mother is that you get her provision points fairly worthwhile. Playing 3 bodies is pretty strong, pretty proactive, especially when you have cards that love beasts like the Crow Clan Druid, which you might consider playing. But generally, though, just getting it out, pretty strong just to play the 7 points. You also make a good board for something that's got better bodies. Also, if you want to kill this card, damage it, send it to the graveyard, it comes back every time you play an alchemy card. So even in round 1, you'll get value, extra points on your alchemy stuff if you end up damaging or killing this card. And she's always coming back. She haunts your dreams, the Crow Mother. I think it's really cool. Lots of carryover for Skellige. I think Last Day Skellige is going to be pretty interesting. You also have the Druid stuff. So the Crow Clan Preacher does care about alchemy cards, is also bonded and part of the scenario. So we're likely going to see a lot of value come out of these engines. And you have the Crow Clan Druid, which is, as a card that cares about druids, you're always looking to druids to find value. This one's pretty fair. Boost adjacent beast by 2. It's an 8-point card, and it seems pretty easy to get the crows on the board. This one puts 2 crows on the board. This one puts 2 crows on the board. A new alchemy spell here, Crow's Eye Rhizome, spawns 2 crows, or 3 if you control a druid already. Pretty good. And also, Axel 3 Eyes spawns a crow, but also loves having a lot of crows already on the board. So really good synergy stuff. New alchemy card was given to Skellige, really more of a greatsword, dagger, herald, kind of reckless fury sort of card. Doesn't really care too much about the other cards in the set, but as an alchemy card, all alchemy cards do care about stuff like Crow Mother and stuff like Crow Clan Preacher. So will this be enough to create a competitive Skellige alchemy archetype? Hey, I'll keep that in. I think that the inclusion of Crow's Messenger and Crow Mother, knowing that Freya's is the Resurrection spell is an alchemy card, I think it's realistic to think that the alchemy cards are very strong. You're bringing back stuff like the Iron Drakkar, possibly getting a lot of value out of the Druid. I don't know about how good the Druids are. I'm going to double check the Druid situation here for Skellige. I mean, there's the Heme Herbalist, the Heme Flaminica, which is pretty decent, Corrupted Flaminica as well, and there will be beasts in the graveyard, so it's not even like it's going to be like you'd play it just to play the Druid, maybe, and also possibly get like 8 or 9 points out of her. which is probably fine. Gremist, of course. Ermion as well. Very, very good. Yeah, so just playing Gedonith, the scenario, and then dropping Ermion into Freya, rezzing the crows, bringing back the Crow Mother or whatever. It just seems like there's a lot of crazy explosive points out there for Skellige. I'm not quite sure how good it'll be competitively, but I don't really see what's going to hold it back necessarily. The only thing that holds it back is that it's just not fast enough. But I think that a lot of these cards are good in their own right. Spawning 3 crows is pretty good. It's like Zoltan's Company for 5. I'm playing that card at 6. It's pretty good. Stuff that cares about adjacent units. Find the stuff that really, really likes to bust it, and you can do it. I don't know. I think it's going to be pretty good stuff. If I had to rank the cards as far as most impactful to least impactful, cards that might be the best to worst, I'd probably start off with the Giga Scorpion Decoction being the worst card added to the set. Not because it's bad, because I don't think it's adding anything truly unique now that Delirium's also an alchemy spell, and if you really need to deal 6 damage, sometimes you play it. I mean, it's good for, you know, it's the other cards were also very good for, this is better for greatswords because it's targeted, but ultimately it's not that great. I think that the Crow Clan Druid, it's hard to say this is a bad card because the top end of this card is very good and has a lot of synergy. So I think that I'll say this is probably the next worst card, but now we're in the, well, the Preacher is probably the next worst card, but I just see potential with it, with the bonded situation, the fact that alchemy is going to be good, and the fact that it has scenario support. So, but I'd probably say Preacher, then Druid, Crow's Eye Rhizome for sure, Crow Messenger and Crow Mother. Probably, I mean, they're probably the best cards, right? And then Axel is pretty good. I like Axel's 7 for 7, legitimate, always playing the beasts, always playing the druid, has this very, very high ceiling, I think. Last Say Skellige is already pretty scary, so I think that looking at Crow Messenger, Crow Mother, and then Axel kind of being the close to that, Ermion, fill your board up with crows, play a bunch of crows, and then Last Say with this dude actually might be good. Can we get to round 3 safely? That's the question. Now, finally, I want to talk about, as far as the factions, I want to talk about Syndicate. I think Syndicate got the worst cards by, I mean, Northern Realms cards aren't great, but Syndicate cards just have bad cards, I think. I mean, unless I'm highly under-evaluating them. The Street Urchin is a 4 provision, 2 strength, profit 3. It has a coin sink at 4, which is okay. It's an early profit, which is okay. But I don't think, I mean, Syndicate's all about really good 4 strength cards. You don't necessarily or ever would want to play Portal with this. It just doesn't seem like it really stands up to the other 4-point cards. The Payroll Specialist, this card just seems bad. It's a 3 strength Intimidate with profit 2, tribute 2, move a unit. It's good in that it's more movement options for, I mean, every faction felt like it got more movement options. Northern Realms and Syndicate specifically. And I think that maybe that's valued very high because paying the tribute to move and then you get the profit. I mean, you can always profit. I mean, it's okay because you're always either making the money or moving the card. So in a way, it is a very flexible card. Caters more to crimes, but more of the cards in Syndicate seem to care more about fees. It's probably not the worst card, but it's probably the worst card in the set. It's probably not an awful card. Urchin's worse, I think. Pacifier Peaches is the new engine that's added. I think it's probably pretty good. It's pretty hard to say that an engine is ever bad when it starts at 4 and it has support. Bloody Good Friends are pretty good, I think. I think it's probably the most interesting card. But I mean, I'm comparing these cards to Syndicate. If I say pretty good, I mean pretty good like for a card, not for Syndicate. Syndicate has better cards. Saul the Navarrete, it's kind of like an alternative to Dire Mutated Hound. It's like a mid-range boosty card, a lot of horde support. I do like that there's a lot of horde support and a lot of gang support. And then you have Ludovicus. Ludovicus is a card that gets you 6 coins after 3 turns, or immediately gets you 2 coins, 7 provisions for 5 strength. I think this card is also a bad card. I think that Syndicate got 2 cards that I would say are bad cards that likely won't see any play. I don't even think I would say that about Northern Realms. I honestly think you could find a deck for any of these cards. Siege Ladder is not great. Carabliss is not great. But they're better than these cards. I honestly think that. The Passiflora scenario is very interesting because Intimidate is generally good because, his crimes are good. That's why Intimidate always felt very, very good. So this allows you to really flood. So you have tons of money, right? You're gaining money, you're playing units with fee, and you're getting tons of extra stuff. So it's really good that a lot of these cards care about fee. Hold on. Yeah, this card cares about units with fee, and a lot of these cards are just better the more money you have. I think that's just a little bit extra support. And then there's some gang support. Collusion. This is the last card that I think is actually the best card Syndicate got. Because it's the coolest card and it actually seems pretty strong. 12-point crime, so it is tutorable, of course, by anything. So you're going to see this card a lot. If you control a unit with any of these gang categories, this card has these specific effects. So Tide Cloak gains you 4 coins. Firesworn spawns 2 Firesworn Zealots. Cut-ups damages by 4. Crown Splitters boost by 4. And Blind Eyes increases all the other effects by 1. Notably, Firesworn getting a boost of 2 in this situation. And the extra coin is also worth more than 1. So this is just has a lot of potential. You can do so many different things at any given time. The board state matters, your deck building matters, your opponent can play around it in some situations. The only reason why I think this card may not be good is because control could be too good. And I honestly believe the control is good still. Nilfgaard doesn't need any help from the new cards for Enslaved to still be good. I believe that. So I think that if you don't have good control, it's going to be difficult. I think that this is probably a really, really good card for Swarm because you get extra stuff out of it if you're running other good cards that aren't Firesworn cards. But I think that the potential of this card is really high. You have cards that count for 2 gangs, Bloody Good Friends being the most interesting card because it counts for 2 gangs. So I think that, and the stratagem, of course, just really good for Syndicate. Very, very, very easy to see why you would consider picking something like this. All in all, the worst cards, probably Street Urchin, Payroll Specialist, and Ludificus, which is too bad because it sucks when one of your worst cards is a 7 card. Again, I could be underrating these cards, but I just don't think that's that good. I mean, you can make the tribute free with Louisa, but doesn't Louisa have better things to do? And then I would probably say that Saul, Better Call Saul, is not very good because Dire Mutated Hound and cards like Bincy are just better, and he's weak to the same stuff as those cards, and those cards are already around. I don't know. I just think probably good. I mean, an engine is usually nothing. Anything that can boost by 2 is really good, but Horde 6, you're playing fees. How much are you holding on to? For how long? You have to play it early. It's just going to get killed, I think. And then that brings me to the Passiflora Peaches. It's always good to have a good engine. Just realistically, this card is as good as any other Syndicate card that cares about its faction mechanic. So for Horde, it doesn't get any better than this, I honestly think. It's just a really good card. Bloody Good Friends are really cool just because it's the double gang card. Has a lot of opportunity to deal damage. Really good against Northern Realms boost. Would be really annoying to play against this card. And just a really good gold sink. You get a lot of status out there. It's like a cheap, kind of better Horson's Freak Show. And I think Collusion is probably the best card just because it's the most interesting card. But it may not even be a good card. It may be too hard to play. Syndicate by far got the worst cards, and I don't think anybody's really going to cry too many tears for Syndicate because Syndicate has had a really, really good run. They were released at a very high power level, and they've been nerfed a ton and still are very, very good. I think Northern Realms could have used just a little bit better cards, but I'm not going to underestimate the 16-point card. This card is nutty good. This could be the Vernon Merciless of the set, right? Just deal with my 17-point card. It's just that good. So we'll see. But we haven't really talked about the neutrals. Most of the neutrals were stratagem, so we did talk about them. But there are still another 10 cards to cover real quick before we close off the video of all the Ofir cards at once. We managed to do it in 3 videos, boys and girls. We got the King Cobra. This is neutral poison. It's one of the only cards that has a rando piece of armor. One of the only ones, but it does have it. So deploy poison enemy unit by 1. Neutral, just counts as a beast. It is what it is. The neutral cards in the set are not, there's no fillers because the stratagem were like the super interesting neutrals that they added. There's only 70 cards in the set. They didn't add any really crazy high-end ones. And they actually kept almost all of the effects of the neutrals very unique and interesting. This one probably being the least interesting. The Ofir Merchant, 4 provisions for a 4-strength human. On deploy, swap the top card of your opponent's deck with yours. What a crazy card. This card is going to just be full of all sorts of, like, this is a card that's like, I won't say it's a good card, but I'm going to say this card is going to be, it's going to create moments. And there's decks that will try to break this card. Really, really carefully keeping my eye on this card here. The Caravan Guard. This card is an interesting card. It's not a good card, but it's an interesting card in that this card gets better and stronger for each 3 power a target has. So if you were to hit Spear Tip at 12, it damages it by 5. So it's an 8-strength card at 5. Pretty good for a neutral. Requires your opponent to have a big unit. Really hurts dominance, I guess. Like, it's just not going to be good enough to be run, but it's an interesting and unique effect. If the Caravan Vanguard. This card is actually maybe very good. It's not a soldier, has no good tags except for human if you like to play Drog, but or Doppler, I guess, and Drog. But on deploy, this card boosts itself by 3. It's a 6 provision, 3-strength human. But on unranged, it copies itself, so you get 6 either way. But if it's bonded, it uses both abilities. So you're looking at cards like a Dahlia. You're looking at cards like, I don't know, Operator or something like that. Operator got buffed, by the way. Operator is even cheaper than ever. So, you know, there might be a cool way to get, like, it's 12 points if you get it bonded. 12 points is pretty good for a 6 provision card. So you play a Dahlia, you still get, like, the extra units and the extra humans or the boost from the first play. You still get what it's worth. And then you get a lot more. I don't know. It could be good. It could be good. And then we have the Runewright and Dalla Kamani. I talked about this a lot in the Monsters card review because Monsters have a card that tutors 7 provision point cards. And these guys play if the other one already exists. So if you already have the Runewright on the board, the Dilla has this extra effect. And the effect is the same for the Runewright. And that effect is spawning the Desert Treasure, which on order, meaning your opponent can interact with this as well. Unfortunately, these guys have a lot working against them. You spawn and play a random legendary unit from any faction, which could be awful. So you are going through a lot of trouble for memes. And that's what it's about. That's how it is. Now, there are a lot of ways to play 2 cards in this game. So you probably will see these guys show up. But it seems like it's a lot of trouble. But, you know, Deathwish can do it. Nilfgaard can probably always do it. I think it's really interesting. Shere Khan. It's supposed to be like a play on Shere Khan from Jungle Book. This Mighty Tiger is an 8 provision, 0.2 strength beast. After 2 of your turns, boost self by 10 at the end of the turn. Yeah, it's not very good, is it? It's like prize-winning cow. It's not very good. Maral. This is this is like the Gaunter Odim of poison. He's a 9-strength, 5 provision point unit that on deploy poisons the unit and on order poisons the unit. This is way, way better than Gaunter. It's very aggressively priced and statted for a poison unit. 9 is expensive. It is expensive, but if you care about poison, you're using this card probably. Very scary card. And then we have the 2 bomb cards of the expansion. This one is probably the best card. This card is probably the largest candidate for a nerf out of the gate. Not because it's overpowered and not even because she breaks the game, but I think because why would you not play this card? Why would you not play this card? She's a 9 provision point, 6 strength human agent that on deploy, if there's no passing and your opponent can draw a card, both players draw a card. You draw your highest provision point card, and your opponent draws their lowest provision point card. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. It is like draw a card. It mitigates the risk of drawing a card. It mitigates the risk of a mirrored effect by the highest possible margin. It's taking an effect that mirrors it, and it swings it in your favor as much as possible. And she's 6 strength. That's very good. 6 strength, draw a card. Your opponent draws the Infiltrator or whatever. draws like the worst card in their deck. This card has to be arguably one of the best cards in the set, I would say. But not to be outdone, a very, very interesting and unique card. It's another Shoop-esque card, also expensive. But for 10 provisions, you get Radia. She is 8 provision. Sorry, she's 8 strength, which ain't bad already. Anything that's 8 strength has my attention. On deploy, oh, you have to have no duplicates in your deck when the game starts. So you have to play a singleton deck, like a Shoop deck. On deploy, if you play her on melee, spawn your faction stratagem on this row. Or if you play her on range, create a neutral stratagem on this row. So whatever your faction stratagem is, you have control over that. Or you're creating random poison, purify. Now, I believe you can use these right away. I don't think that they have a sleeping period for the order. I could be wrong. So you get the poison, you get the purify and boost, you get the hand buff, you get to improve your deck and put one and just filter your hand. You can damage an enemy unit by 3 or create a 5 strength unit. But the most important part is that when she creates this item that helps you, your opponent cannot stop it. Nothing affects stratagems. Whether or not we can really break that is up to the creative minds at GWENT. I'm just here, like you guys, stunned that we're reviewing a whole expansion at once. And we did it, my friends, we did it. I also played a couple games with Shoop Siege, so I'm going to probably single one out and export that as well. And it's going to be a day of videos from here. Don't boycott me, please, devil, please. Poison on order is a big deal. Yeah, it's a big deal. Yeah, I think that morale. Let's talk about so I think as far as the neutral cards, the ones that obviously stand out are all the legendaries. The stratagems you cannot use or rotate in without owning them. So I own one at the moment. They are legendary cards, so they're in kegs and they take those spots. Whether or not they are worth your time is probably the most interesting question that's going to be asked over the first couple weeks. What factions care about these? I mean, like, what's worth your scraps? Would you ever like just hate to see some of these? I'm not really sure. They're all very, very interesting cards, and there's nothing quite like it in the game. As far as the other 3 legendary cards, no doubt, Radia, Mata, and Morale are all top-tier cards for their respective decks. Well, I mean, Mata might just be a top-tier card for any deck. The most important thing about Mata that I wanted to just cover before I signed off is that Mata draws you almost exclusively your scenario. So it's drawing your scenario almost exclusively, unless you have a card that's more expensive than 14, and if you do, you have a lot of expensive cards in your deck. Or it's drawing something like Caretaker, which is guaranteed to replay your siege. So if you have a deck, like I'm running this Shoop Siege, so I'm actually trying this right now with Siege and Caretaker and Mata, in that I can always draw my siege and I can always replay my siege. I'm playing Pincer, so I can always get, you can't play Caretaker into, like, you can always play your siege into another card, but I feel like Pincer is pretty good for this. And it's a Shoop deck, right? Because I'm playing some Radia, because I got that sweet, I didn't craft this one. This was my gift from the GWENT gods. She has no palm, so her future cannot be read. Yeah, we'll just lore in that. Or it's just a really strong shadow. I don't know. It's a dope card art, as all of them are. Card art in this game, of course, is on point. Really cool blending of like that Southeast Asian sort of style, like more specifically like kind of like the African South Asian sort of look, Indian sort of look. So I think that they really did just a cool job kind of creating. It's almost like they created a faction but gave it to all of GWENT. So it's really cool. Siege Caretaker might be a thing. Merchants of Ofir is definitely real, and it's here, and you can play it now. Lots of bundles, lots of stuff. Check out all the other videos that I recorded, trying to cover all of this stuff in a single day. I hope you enjoy the videos, and if you did, like and subscribe. I'm back, baby. There's lots to explore, lots of new stratagem combos. Scenarios have my attention. They don't seem OP, but they also don't necessarily seem P either. So we'll have to see if they're actually any good or if Caretaker's worth it. I don't know if Caretaker's worth it, but I do think that there's some scenarios out there that are pretty good. I think Scoia'Tael Elves is for sure. Lots to check out, lots to test. Thanks so much for watching, my friends, and I'll see you next time.